इस अक्षय तृतीया भाग लीजिए प्लस गोल्ड के गोल्ड रश फेस्टिवल में और पाइए 3 लाख तक का सोना जीतने का सुनहरा मौका। तो देर किस बात की, आज ही डाउनलोड करें प्लस गोल्ड ऐप और पार्टिसिपेट करें प्लस गोल्ड के गोल्ड रश फेस्टिवल में। याद रखें, ये ऑफर सिर्फ 10 मई तक वैलिड है।
Podcast, the place to catch up on all the regional and national rugby in Wales. You can find us on all the usual social media platforms and message us through there if you want, or you can email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. So all the boring stuff out of the way, let's talk rugby.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Wrap Podcast. I'm Jamie, I'm not Lee G. Lee is not able to join us this week, but we do have a capable replacement joining us this week. We got Martyn from the Scarlets Fever podcast. How are we doing, Martyn?
Well, I'm all right. I'm not quite sure about a capable replacement. I can't get my video to work.
Yeah, I would say it's good to see you, but I can't see you.
It's just too nice to look at things like this when you've got to stay at the Dragon season. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know exactly what you mean. But maybe you will magically reappear during this podcast. I don't know, but it's nice to have you with us anyway. And of course, I'm joined by Harley Worthy. Good evening, Harley. How are we?
Oh, good evening. I'm glad you finally dropped the doctor whenever you're hosting this, because it always makes me feel a little bit sheepish. I tried taking out my Twitter name, and everyone keeps calling me out on it. Yeah, all good. Had a very nice long weekend without Cardiff losing, which is always nice.
Yeah, same year. The Dragons did lose last week, which is great, isn't it? Same for Scarlets as well, I suppose. A good week for most of us, I think. Okay, so you can find us on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and the Sports Social Network. And if you like what we do, please subscribe, share with your mates, and leave us a good review, as it all helps to grow the pod. Right then, let's get into it. Let's do drink of the week first. Martyn, I can't see you, obviously, but do you have a drink by you?
I do have a drink. And it's a very posh drink. It is hand-delivered by my milkman. It's a pint of full-fat milk.
Oh, that's nice. That sounds really nice.
With a proper cream on the top as you open it. Honest to God. The missus found a milkman about 2 weeks ago that delivers to us. I was like, yes, give it to me. I don't know what it is. I don't know. There must be something added to the process to put it into a carton or something, but this is absolutely stunning. I only ever have milk for cereal and tea, but I've been drinking this by the pint, and it's the nicest thing in the world. Fair play to it.
Okay, pint of milk. There we are then. Harley, what's your drink of the week? What have you got for us?
Sorry, I'm still chuckling to the way my mind works when Big Head said his wife found a milkman to deliver.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I've thrown the can away, but I've got a lovely, nice looking glass, and inside there is some Barry Island IPA from the Brains Craft range. I can't remember if I've had it on the pod before. It's actually one of the more decent things Brains do. So, and as I said, I basically did a pallet last week in Morrison, so this is can number 2 of that batch.
Oh, lovely. Good stuff. Okay, so my drink of the week, any Tiny Rebel drinkers will know this one. This is Easy Living. It's one of their classic beers. Yeah, it's just a classic, isn't it? 4.3%. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Easy Living. So that's what I've got this week. Shall we move on to the news desk? Because we have got a lot of news to talk about, mostly from Dragons and Cardiff. Nothing from the Ospreys or Scarlets, really. But yeah, let's rattle through these news as we go along. So let's start at Cardiff then, shall we? So Cardiff have signed Cardiff Met prop Joe Cowell. Cowell's made 51 appearances for Cardiff Met and was famously called into action by Cardiff against Toulouse in 2021. You remember that one, Harley, when the first team squad was stuck in quarantine. So that's a good pickup there, and obviously building for the future. And then on the coaching side, Cardiff have brought in Johnny Goodrich. The former fullback, who spent more than a decade plying his trade for Gloucester, Leeds and Bristol, is taking up the position of assistant attack/skills coach following the departure of Richie Rees. So they're getting their coaching team all sorted there. And they've also announced 2 signings today. So we're recording this on Tuesday. They've announced 2 loosehead props. So the first one is Danny Southworth from Exeter Chiefs. So he's a Welsh qualified loosehead prop. He's made 25 first team appearances for Exeter. He's a converted number 8, which is quite interesting. So, he's qualified for Wales from his grandparents. Do you know anything about Danny Southworth, Harley?
Quite shockingly, since I live near Exeter, I don't know a huge amount. I mean, I've seen like clips from when he's played Premiership Cup and stuff. Looks pretty decent. I mean, certainly on the highlights reel, it showed that he actually can scrimmage. The fact he's a converted number 8 suggests that he's probably got a bit more of the power game replacing the Rhys Carre. I mean, he's still only 25, so it's plenty of room with him. Not really getting a lot of game time for the Chiefs, being stuck behind the likes of Scott Searle and Alec Hepburn. So I'm presuming he's a fairly cheap buy as well. So that's a good bit of business, especially combined with the next, as I said, compared with the other prop that he signed, Ed Byrne. So experienced Leinster and Ireland international. And Ed's not really been getting a lot of game time for Leinster. I mean, they've used 6 loosehead props this season, which is a luxury I'm sure we all could because I don't think we can cobble 6 together at the moment. So some decent sign on that front. From what I've been hearing, Joe Cowell is being looked at more as a tight head as well. So that's going to be helping boost that stocks, and it's looking like he's likely to be that number 3 jersey and for the Cardiff Rags and the EDC.
So what
is
does this
looking
mean?
like a decent profile of props?
What does this mean for Domikowski then, for them signing a more experienced player? I mean, is this, saying we haven't got enough belief, or are they thinking that he can't last a full season? Because, I'd be looking at Corey as, my main number 1 loosehead. Now the Carre's gone, and you're bringing in someone who is vastly experienced. I mean, it's all good and well having loads of props, etc. But when the salary cap is so tight, is it really wise spending that money on another loose head when you've already got one who's supposedly capable? I mean, the same thing can be questioned of the Scarlets signing Alec Hepburn when we got Kempson Matthias still here.
I think you've got to look at it as Corey Domikowski isn't going to be there every week. I think Corey Domikowski is going to be our first choice, but then you want someone good on the backup. We've basically been dovetailing Carre and Domikowski this season. And when one or the other's not been available, we've had Rhys Barrett on the bench, and Sharrett's been quite reluctant to use him because they don't think he's quite ready for this level. And by bringing in someone as experienced as Ed Byrne, you've got a senior international who can be there for these development players. But also then, if Corey gets in it, picks up a knock, or he's away with Wales, we've got someone who can step up, and we're not going to have the drop in quality. So I think that's where the depth is going to be quite useful. Plus, also with Ed Byrne, he has captained Leinster a few times as well, so we've got that leadership role, which is something Jockey's been very keen on. And in the video announced today, they released today, you're saying that part of these priorities for the people he's bringing in are these more experienced players to help build the youngsters to build around. So on the face of it, maybe it's not the wisest bit of money, but also as soon as you think, well, if Domikowski gets injured on the tour, presuming he goes, then we're stuck at shit creek without a paddle.
It's a good signing, I think, Ed Byrne. Like I said, he brings experience, and Cardiff are going to be well stocked now in loose because you'll have Domikowski, you'll have Rhys Barrett, you'll have Ed Byrne, and you've got the other guy as well, haven't you?
Yeah, you got
his name escapes me. So, who have you got?
And we've also got Rhys Barrett's younger brother as well, whose name I've forgotten, but he's just been promoted to the senior academy. So it's looking like we've got a decent age profile and conveyor through.
Yeah. No, I think that's a tidy sign. Like I said, Domikowski will be away with Wales, and you got good options at loose. It's a sensible signing Cardiff are making, I think. Which you don't often say that about Cardiff, do you? Do you know what I mean?
I'm expecting them to sign the ghost of Felipe Contepomi next week, just to sort of balance it out.
Okay, so that's the signing news. Let's move on to some not so good news. So Matt Sherratt has confirmed that Thomas Young is going to miss the rest of the season after suffering a ruptured bicep. So yeah, that's a big blow for Cardiff. But he should be back fit and available for the start of pre-season. So at least, as you were saying, Harley, at least you know that Thomas Henry is going to be with you guys next season. So that's something, I suppose. And then let's talk about departures. So the Lane train is departing for France. That's right. So Owen Lane is going to be leaving Cardiff at the end of the season to join Valence Romans in the Pro D2. 43 tries in 92 Cardiff appearances, and he's won 5 Wales caps, scoring 2 tries. So on 2 tries and winning 5 Wales caps. In another departure, to the surprise of many, Shane Lewis-Hughes has joined the Dragons from Cardiff. So Lewis-Hughes, who can play as a flanker or lock, came through Cardiff's academy and has played 68 games for the region, and he's won 3 caps for Wales. He would have had a lot more, wouldn't he, but for injuries. So I want to get your take on those departures, then, Harley. Owen Lane, and in particular Shane Lewis-Hughes going to the Dragons. Did that surprise you?
Yes and no. So I think if you look at it goes back to things Jock was saying about, like, he's basically said the reason they've had to let him go is budget. And it's like, well, we've got very experienced players in those positions, plus some youngsters coming through, and they sort of fall in that middle ground of, the injuries have not really played well. I think Shane Lewis-Hughes is going to be a great signing for the Dragons. I think you called it on Dragons Lair months ago that he'd be a great signing for the Dragons. I don't know if that was your insider knowledge of mating up with David Buttress or not, but I like to believe that you're actually making the signing decisions now.
I wish. I knew a few weeks ago, actually. I sort of dropped in the nearest hints. So I just planted the seed as I knew we'd signed him. And I just wanted to get a reaction, really, of Gav and other people by name dropping him. So, there he is. He's joined us. I knew he would. We can see you now.
So you can see it is real. It wasn't made up. Lovely point of it.
Oh, there we go then.
For audio listeners, Martyn has finally appeared on video on the Zoom call. So we were looking at a blank screen trying to sort of interact with it with a nothingness.
The hair is tied back, mine, so there's not much of a mane going on today. But I do have my pink headphones, so that's always a nice one.
Are they your daughters then?
Yes. No shame in that.
No, you should have lied and said they were yours, and you picked them especially.
Well, no, if I turn them, you can see all the lovely
stuff. Yeah.
That they put on. I got 4 girls, and the 3 younger ones have all got these headphones, so I'll just stole one for today.
That's fair enough. The Shane Lewis-Hughes, I'm quite pleased about that. What I like about this signing is it's pretty low risk because the Argus reported that we've signed him on meagre terms. So we've actually signed him on less money than what he was getting at Cardiff. So we're picking up a Welsh international on the cheap. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. It's 2 years. We just say, off you go. We're not paying over the odds for him. And if it does work out, then great. Like I said, we're getting a Welsh international on the cheap. So I think it's a really good bit of business by the Dragons, but he just needs to stay fit because he's been very unlucky with injuries.
To that as well. Sorry, just to add to that as well. I think because Jockey's been trying to force him into playing a bit more second row because he wants Sylvan as this Josh Turnbull replacement. I think Shane really just wants to play 6. So I think at the Dragons, that's more of an option. Whereas you've got second rows having to fill in at 6, whereas we've got 6s filling in at second row. So that does help.
Yeah.
I mean, it does make the Dragons back row look quite tasty. You have Lewis, Hughes, Basham, and Wainwright, and then obviously you've got Keggy, who could come on the bench. And I know you've got Woodman, the youngster.
Big fan of Woodman.
He looked awesome on the weekend for Newport. So you've got a good set of back rows coming through there. You've got a nice little stable to go for a good few seasons.
Yeah, and don't forget our new signing, Solomon Funaki as well from Monaco Pacifica, the Tongan international. So back row is looking like a good area of strength. And I presume he's probably replacing Sean Lonsdale. So that's what I'm hearing anyway. Sean Lonsdale could be moving on. So he kind of plays that lock back row hybrid. So it's a good replacement. But like I said, it's no risk. Let's just see how it goes. But I was quite happy with that signing. Right then, moving on to the Dragons now. David Buttress will step down as Dragons chairman this summer. This is due to him taking on that OVO Energy chief executive job, so it's pretty inevitable, really, that he's going to stand down. Buttress will remain on the Dragons board, though, as a non-executive director and a major part of the ownership team, so he's not going far. And Dragons have announced that the co-owner, David Wright, will be the club's new chairman from the 1st of July onwards. So, I've talked about this on Dragons Lair. What a brilliant job David has done, in Welsh rugby. He stood up to the WRU, the PRB, and if it wasn't for David, Dragons wouldn't exist, because he fought for the club. We were very, very close to going under, and good on him for getting it done. So, he's been a great asset to the Dragons, and thankfully he's not going too far. He's still remaining on the board, so good luck to him in his new role for OVO Energy. And then let's go on to some signing news. And so since the last pod, we talked about the signing Chris Hollis and Solomon Fadaki. So since then, we've signed a pair of Australians. So we've signed highly rated centre, the 23-year-old Harry Wilson from the Waratahs. Not a surprise down under that he's gone overseas. He was pretty highly rated down here, so it was a bit of a shock that he's left. And former Scarlets lock, Steve Cummins. Remember him, Matt? Steve Cummins?
Yeah, I remember him very fondly. Him parking down alongside Jake Paul is a good memory. When I look at Steve Cummins now, though, I look at how many games he's played over the last few seasons. I think he's played 7 games in 2 years. He's been 32. I mean, I'm assuming he's not going to be coming on a great deal of money. So, I mean,
no.
Would you imagine this is probably a medium level risk for you guys signing someone like him, because he is getting on. He hasn't played a lot of rugby recently. I mean, I hope it comes off. I really do. It'd be great to see you guys competing at the top level again. But, this screams to me the type of signing that the sort of journeyman signing that we've seen a lot of in Welsh rugby.
Well, I think, Dave Flanagan talked about adding experience and bulk to the pack. And obviously Steve Cummins does that. He's been around a little while now. He's 32, but he's also 6'7". Do you know what I mean? So that's pretty handy, isn't it, having a 6'7" lock? So I think he's been brought in, like I said, just to add a bit of muscle, a bit of experience. I don't know if he's going to be a week in, week out starter, but he's a good option to have on the bench. We do have a young group of players, and I think he's going to be a good mentor for guys like Ben Carter and Nick Thomas as well. You got to think about that. So I think it's a decent signing. And like you said, Matt, he's not going to be on a lot of money. So again, I think it's fairly low risk. I think he's been signed on a 2-year deal. He's not going to cost the earth. But I think it's a decent signing. In an ideal world, we'd all love to be signing Eben Etzebeth when we had a world-class lock. But unfortunately, our budgets dictate otherwise. But I think it's a decent signing personally. But keen to see how that one goes. And then off the field appointments. So Dragons have announced Rhys Blumberg as the club's new chief executive officer. So Rhys moves to Rodney Parade to take up the post ahead of next season following a 4-year spell as chief operating officer at Cardiff Rugby. So Blumberg has worked as general manager, commercial manager, and head of sales and marketing during this time with Cardiff Rugby. And I know how highly thought of he is in Welsh Rugby. He's done some really good work at Cardiff, as you, Harley, can probably attest to. I'd also say as well, your co-host Carwyn Harris did a really good interview with Rhys Blumberg in Sport in Wales. So I would urge any of our listeners, especially drag sports, to read that interview that Carwyn did with him in Sport in Wales, because really, really good. He spoke well, and I think he's going to be a very good asset to the Dragons. It's good to see us get our off-field appointments, sorted as well as the on-field, because it's just as important as the off-field stuff as well as the on-field. So pleased about that. And then finally, the big news, the news that's got Welsh Rugby Twitter talking at least, is Dragons have finally announced a defence coach, and it's none other than former All Black and Ospreys legend Theo Tiatia. So, great appointment, I think. He comes with a lot of experience. He's been head coach at Toyota Fairblitz and Sunwolves in Japan, and he spent time as a forwards coach and assistant coach for the Japan national side. Tiatia's worked in Super Rugby as well as forwards coach for Monaco Pacifica, and he's had a spell as forwards coach with Auckland Rugby. So he's coming back to Wales with a wealth of coaching knowledge and experience. So finally pleased we got a defence coach, because we got an all season without the defence coach in the shows, and you just can't do that. And you can't go through an entire season without the defence coach in this, in the URC, because it's just pretty amateur. But finally pleased we got that sorted.
Can I just say how jealous I am right now that you guys are signing players and coaches left, right, and centre, and there's just nothing on the Scarlets front. The only thing I even know that's coming is our leavers list is supposed to be announced before Saturday. I know that's not going to get people going, and especially knowing we need at least one coach before next season, and there's rumours over almost everyone except for Dwayne Peel going. So, I am unbelievably jealous of you guys right now.
It's a good appointment. I'm really pleased with it. The proof is in the pudding, of course, but I think we've done incredibly well.
One thing I did see other people point out, and his thing is, if you look at his coaching CV, it's pretty much all forwards coach, which actually, to be fair, for the Dragons is not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Because I think you need some decent forward coaching as well. But I think that could cause a teething problem. But you were saying about having a defence coach all season. Remember, you've had the same number of wins as the Scarlets, and they've had 2 defence coaches this season.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
I don't think we've had a defence coach at all until the Munster game, based on things that we heard inside the camp. It was just a lot of turmoil going on through that first. Well, let's be honest, it was the first 9 months of the season, because we've had a hell of a long pre-season as well. But yeah, we've in terms of defence, Jared Payne seems to be doing a really good job, and what a surprise, he is a defence coach.
Yeah.
But he's apparently still doing some work on the backs and attack as well, which I'm just.
Well, that was the reason he left. That's why he left also, is because Dan McFarlane wouldn't let him take over the attack coach.
Yeah, and
because that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, it was the same when he. Oh, where did he go in France? It
Claremont, I think. I don't know why Claremont's in my head.
I'm not 100%, but it was the exact same thing there. He had the defence there, and then he moved up the head coach when the head got sacked, and they just didn't want to keep him on as an attack coach. So he reached out to his friend, Dwayne, gives a job, and here we are.
Well, there we go then. Okay, that's all the news done. Let's talk about what happened on the weekend. So it was the Welsh Premiership semi-finals. Let's start with Llandovery from Cardiff. So it finished Llandovery 34, Cardiff 13 at Churchbank. Now, Martyn, I know you watched this game. What are your thoughts on it?
It finished 38-13.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. That was 40. I'm thinking 48. I'm thinking Newport now. My bad. Sorry, Matt.
It was 34-13, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking Newport then with the 8. I remember there was an 8 in it. Never mind. Game was awesome. Honest to God, that first half, it was so intense. I mean, the speed at which Llandovery play, it wouldn't be out of place in the URC. And the Cardiff defence, all credit to the Rags. They were a brick wall in that first half. It didn't matter what the Drovers were throwing at them. It was just repelled. And one of the very few chances Cardiff had, they actually crossed the line. So, they went into half-time in the lead. Not many teams get to do that at Churchbank. So that's a massive credit in itself. But, same as with any team, when you defend for long periods of time, the floodgates do eventually open. And I think it was about the 55-minute mark. Drovers ran in a nice, well-played team try. They worked through the phases, got over. And then I think it was Max Page who picked up the second try with that wonder run, and he beat about 4 or 5 defenders on his own to go under, and the game kind of seemed dead for about 60 minutes. And I think Cardiff had really overexerted themselves defending for so long, and they just didn't have anything to fire back with. But all in all, it was a brilliant game to watch, and I'm really disappointed the Newport Evervale game wasn't broadcasted well. It would have been a perfect opportunity to do it, because that was supposed to be a great showing of attacking rugby, especially from Newport in that game.
Talk to us about Max Page then, Mark, because there's been a lot of hype around this kid, and that try was doing the rounds on Twitter. Could you see him breaking into the Scarlets team pretty soon? Looks like to be one for the future, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've seen him at under 18 level, obviously under 20s, and now this season with the Drovers. He wants to play 13. He can cover 11 through to 15, but from what I've seen of him, he wants to play 13, and that's one of the hardest jobs in the back line, especially in defence. And he's still learning, same as any 19-year-old outside centre in the world. You're still learning your defensive responsibilities at that level. In attack wise, he's brilliant on his own. One thing I've seen from him that has improved over this season is when he's facing that last man and he's got options with him, he doesn't always make the right decision. He doesn't always execute those 2-on-1s for the simple try. But that is something that's improving. In terms of starting for the Scarlets, yeah, I could probably see him at some. He's definitely starting pre-season. Some games he'll definitely be involved there. In terms of the URC and Europe, if he does play, I would imagine he'd start more on the wing, just to sort of introduce him to the game more, because I think that's where he can really cause some damage, as we've seen. This isn't the first time he's scored a try like this season. So he's very exciting. I'm expecting him to get a few starts on the wing over the course of the season. But yeah, he wants to be a 13. I can see him pushing for that 13 over the next few years. He's very similar to Corey Baldwin in terms of he wants to be a 13, but he's perfectly built and shaped to be a winger. He's got that top end pace. He's got everything you need for that.
Okay, interesting. So in the other, sorry, go on, Harley. What did you say?
I was just going to add, because a lot of the stuff Mark says is basically everything we've been saying for Cardiff with Mason Grady coming through. You can tell he wants to be a 13, but he's still trying to learn it all. And actually, if you stick him on the wing, it's quite devastating. So it's actually quite interesting. I think it's going to be fun for him trying to get through past Joe Roberts' mind at Scarlets, because I've made no secret, for me Joe Roberts is my choice 13.
Yeah, well, Johnny Williams has been doing a job for us. Whether he stays with us or not, that's still up in the air at the minute. Or at least it was the last time we had anything official out of Dwayne. And Johan Nicholas covers our 13 berth, and he is a rock solid regional player. So yeah, there's a few steps for him to climb if he wants to get that 13 shirt.
Okay, fair enough then. You touched on earlier there, in the other semi-final, Newport RFC bumped Ebervale 48-13 over in Newport Stadium, thanks to a hat-trick from Dragon centre Joe Westwood, who was named player of the match. Dragon scrum-half Shade Hope also got on the score sheet. I didn't see this game, I've only seen the highlights, but Joe Westwood, he looks some talent. And Shade Hope is having a fantastic season for Newport. I'm just hoping those guys can transfer it now to the Dragons on the big stage of the URC. But I think it's the right final, having these two teams. These are clearly the two best teams in the Premiership by country mile. Newport have now won 15 straight games in a row since losing to Llandovery at the end of November. That is very impressive, isn't it? Fair play to them. They're a very good team, aren't they, Matt?
And one thing with Newport as well, they're peaking. They've really, probably since the game that they won against Llandovery down in, I think it was at Newport Stadium, since that game, they've gone up about 3 or 4 gears, because they have been firing through absolutely everybody. We look at the results from early in the season against Ebervale. They won by 8 away and they lost by 6 at home. To go on and win this game by 35 points, that's completely out of the range. That's totally unexpected based on what we've already seen this season. So I am worried when I'm looking at it from a Drover's point of view. They have come out and they have done. Christ, they've done more than a job on some of these teams.
Yeah, they got a really good blend of youth and experience. Because obviously you've got the kids coming from the Dragons, then you've got guys like Elliot Frewer, you've got Matt O'Brien, who's been brilliant at that level for so long, Lloyd Lewis, Henry Palmer, and then you've got Reinhard Landman, who's been brilliant since he's come back to Newport, who I still think could do a job at the Dragons. Honestly, I think he could still do a job at pro level, but Newport have been flying, fair play to him. So the Premiership final would be at Churchbank, Llandovery, against Newport RFC on Saturday, May the 11th. Which is this Saturday. Should we have some quick predictions? Harley, who are you picking for a winner from that? Tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it's probably tougher than either of the semi-finals were. Because I agree with you, even though normally the Rags supporter here, Llandovery had a number on us for the last couple of seasons. Purely for home advantage, I'm going to go for Drovers by 4. But I think it's going to be quite a close game.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. But I think the game being at Churchbank, though, probably gives Llandovery a good advantage to say. What do you say, Matt? Well, you're going to say Llandovery now.
Yeah, I'm always going to say Llandovery, especially
No
on
point
this end.
asking me.
I think it's going to be an entertaining game, just the way both of them play, but the way both of them want to play. I
Yeah.
reckon it's probably going to be close for about 70, maybe even 75 minutes, but I do think Llandovery are going to pull away in the end. I'll go Drovers by 10.
Drovers by 10. I'm going to go Newport by 5. I think Newport would just about get the job done. Okay, so let's move on to URC, the bread and butter of the URC, round 16. It's kids' round as well this weekend. So kids have the opportunity to take over the match day and broadcast role, so they can do stuff like match manager, play with the match interviews, ground staff, doing the club kit manager and PA announcer, which I think is really good. And I know Ospreys fans will say, I know Ospreys fans will say, we've already done that, but it's good that the URC are doing it right across the board. I think it's a great way to get the kids involved, isn't it? So, I think that's really good work by the URC. So let's start with the games then, and let's preview this weekend. Friday night, first up, it's Dragons against the Stormers. It's the last game of the season, last home game of the season for the Dragons at Bromley Parade. 7:35 kickoff. The referee is Chris Busby. The game is live on BBC Two Wales and Premier Sports. So the problem the Dragons got now is they are playing teams who are chasing the top 8. And they're looking at us thinking, okay, we need to take 5 points from them. We are being looked at in that way, unfortunately. And that's when the Dragons need to stand up, turn around and go, actually, no. We're not going to roll over and lay down. So they really need to fight in these last few games. Unfortunately for the Dragons, though, Stormers are coming down here fully loaded. I've seen the squad today that John Dobson has announced, and all the Springboks there. So he said, we are taking our Springboks. This will be a very different mindset from the first tour. It's full metal jacket. Great film, that. It's full metal jacket to try and win every game. So, they're coming down here fully loaded. It's going to be very, very difficult. I saw today that Kai Evans has broken his bone in his shin, so we're not going to see him now until probably Judgment Day. That's when they're hoping to get him back. If not, then Dave Flanagan said he might be available for the Wales tour to Australia. So that means we'll probably see Jordan Williams, a fullback, who I actually thought did okay against Connor. I'm not a big Jordan Williams fan, but I thought he did all right. Probably have Will Reid at 10. Angus O'Brien hopefully should be coming back from injury. He'll be on the bench. I'm quite looking forward to seeing Chris Hollis. So Chris Hollis is the South African that we signed from Stormers, the sort of wing centre. So he's going to make his debut against his old club, which is quite interesting. And he's got 3 games basically to impress the Dragons. He's here on trial. He's got 3 games to impress. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. He might give us a bit more power, a bit more pace. But it's going to be a very, very tough game. And I hope there's a good crowd down there. Like I said, it's the last game of the season at home at Rodney Parade. I hope it's a good crowd, but we are really going to have to front up because, it's going to be a tough one, especially if they're coming down here with their Springboks. And then on Saturday, we got Scarlets versus Ulster. At Lethley, kickoff time, 3:05. The referee is the Italian ref, Gianluca, is it Ganecki? I don't know how you pronounce that. Ganecki or Ganecki. It's live on Premier Sports. So I don't think this game is on free to air. So, Martyn, how do you feel about this one? Because Scarlets did put up a pretty good showing against the Sharks, didn't they? They showed a lot of spirit, a lot of fight, a lot of endeavour. And if they take that into this weekend against Ulster, they got a chance to come away with something, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. Especially seeing the way the Sharks beat Clermont on the weekend as well. That's, just double down on that performance that we put in against them. For the last 2 months, probably during the middle of the Six Nations, the mood seems to have turned in the camp. Everybody seems a little bit happier. I know we've only had that 1 win since, but when the boys are playing, you can see it on the field that actually not that they never not give it all, but you can just see the emotion on them. You can see them wanting it more than they perhaps have done previously. Maybe that's to do with the coaching changes or whatever, I don't know. But Ulster haven't performed as well as they would have wanted to this season. And then coming down here, knowing they've got Leinster and Munster in the last 2 games, they're probably thinking, we either get the 5 points down here or that's our playoff hopes over. So all the pressure is on them. And I think we can do a job. I'm always going to pick the Scarlet win, even if I don't believe we're going to win. But if we're still in it at the 79-80 minute mark, I'll be happy with that. I'm happy to just take performances right now. So yeah, I think we can do it, especially if Alex Craig comes back in at lock. We've definitely got the players, and now it seems we've got a team that's actually willing to play. One thing I do want to see is something in attack. We saw against the Sharks, we tried to set play off the scrum. I'd like to see a bit more of that. I don't think we've had enough time under this sort of hybrid Peel, Payne attack coach to develop proper phase play yet. That takes months, sometimes even seasons. So I'd like to see us almost every line out or scrum try something on first phase. Let's see what we can do, because that is where we are best. I mean, I've still got memories of that. I think it was the 44-0 against the Ospreys, where we, had a set play off our scrum and scored like an 80-meter try. It's things like that as Scarlets you want to see. You want to see us try something, be expansive, give it a go, and it is something we've missed massively, and something that we're slowly seeing creep back in. But the more that we could see against Ulster, I'd be really happy.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game, shouldn't it? And then later in the day, at 5:15, it's the Emirates Lions versus Cardiff Rugby over in Johannesburg. Referee is Owen Cross. This game is live on S4C and Premier Sports. I don't know about you, Harley. I think this has got fun written all over it. I could see a lot of tries being scored. These are two teams who like to chuck the ball about. They play good brand of rugby. I think this could be fun. How do you feel about this game?
So on the face of it, yeah, two teams who like to throw the ball about and score tries. The problem is Cardiff haven't really been scoring tries. That Dragons Boxing Day game really pushed right. At one point we were like top 3 of the attacking stats, and it was literally that one Boxing Day game. And it's if you plot out all of our scores, it's such an anomaly. Then you've got the altitude factor as well. We're basically going to be going with our first choice team who've played a lot of rugby. So, I think they're going to be quite tired. Lions, despite being 11th in the table of plus 89 points difference, plus 13 try difference, these guys score tries. So I think it's going to look very fun from their perspective. Cardiff, I hope shut, but I'll be honest, not feeling very optimistic, especially after the Edinburgh game 2 weeks ago, because, that was probably our best chance to get a 4th win of the season. And, kind of fucked it. So, I'm less optimistic than a lot of Cardiff fans, I think.
They're a good team, though, the Lions. I love watching
Lions are very good.
I don't like playing against them because they will tear you to shreds if you're not on it. But they're very underrated, I think. I don't think they get the credit they deserve. I mean, I know they are probably the weakest of the 4 South African franchises, but they are a very good team. And if you underestimate them, like I said, they'll punish you. I think it's going to be a really good game, that.
Absolutely. One thing I would say is maybe what we have to do, which is, it's not often I say this, but I think we maybe need to take a leaf out of Munster's book when they played them. And they basically just said, this Lions, they score lots of tries, but mostly through counter-attack and broken field play. And I think what we're going to have to do is just say, here's a ball, go on then. Try and go against our defence, because that is one thing that's been working very well for us. So, a lot of teams haven't been scoring much past us. And then hopefully try and make ourselves a little bit more clinical in attack.
Okay. And then the last game is Leinster versus Ospreys, which is at the RDS. Kickoff 7:35. The referee is Sam Grove-White. This game is also live on S4C, free to air, as well as Premier Sports. Now, Ospreys are having a really good season, as we know. They're the only Welsh team that's likely to break into that top 8. But they are coming up against Leinster in Dublin. And I know a lot of Ospreys fans were hoping that Leinster might rotate because they've just played the semi-final of an year against Northampton. However, it looks like, reading Leo Cullen's comments, they're going to go fully loaded. And that makes the task even more difficult. However, Ospreys have won in Dublin before. So it's perfectly doable. How do you think they'll get on then, Matt? Do you think this is a winnable game for the Ospreys? Do they need to win this one? Or is it a game they have to take something from it?
To stay within that topic, yeah. they need something from all their games. And quite frankly, all these games are cup finals for them. Even going into next week against you, Dragons pick up that win against the Ospreys, and Dragons are probably favourites for the Welsh Shield. There's still other elements to go through it. So it's not as if they're going to be turning up against someone who's got nothing to play for. And Leinster are probably a little bit annoyed with themselves. They know they took a weakened side on South Africa, but they're probably really annoyed that they didn't pick up some points down there. And they now know if they want that top spot, which is it's probably not essential to winning the URC, which we have seen over the last couple of seasons, but it's a massive benefit, and they're really in danger of falling out of the top two even if they don't get the job done now in every game for the rest of the season. So they've got to go fully loaded in all of them. That includes the Champions Cup final in the middle of it all. So yeah, if Ospreys picked up a losing bonus point, I think they'd be happy. But in all honesty, I can't see them coming away with anything.
Harley?
Yeah, fairly similar, especially if, they've announced, I think the last bit of Leinster news I saw was that Gary Moses is looking to make his return. The one thing that, I think Leinster could be very disappointed with that semi-final performance. I think they let Northampton have too close a say into actually turning them over. And I think, there might be some questions about whether or not they're a bit undercooked. I could see them resting a few players. You might have like a Porter rested, but then they're bringing on Cian Healy. That's not exactly a nice prospect. And, Ospreys have turned them over. Turned over Leinster in the past, but not this full Death Star Leinster. The last time they won it was the third. I mean, you can only play what's in front of you, but I think it's going to be very hard. I think best way. And I know I'm going to have some Ospreys fans moaning about me about this, but I think they've got to go full booth ball and just be boring. Don't bother trying to play and do fancy stuff because Leinster will eat it up. Just scrum, go scrum, good kicking game, and just eke it out. And I think if you drag them into the gutters, you're going to have more of a chance than trying to pretend to be entertaining rugby.
It's a tough game, isn't it? I think whatever team Leinster put out was difficult, especially in Dublin. But it's a really tough game for the Ospreys. Best of luck to them because they need the points. I think they need at least a losing bonus point out of this. So if they get that, I think they'll be happy because they'll just target 10 points then from Dragons. They'll get 5 points against Dragons because we're terrible in Swansea and against Cardiff at Judgment Day.
You always turn up against the Ospreys.
Only at Rodney Parade, not in Swansea. We haven't won it in Swansea since Dow Flanagan was Ospreys playoff. Seriously, it's been that long. I think it was 2010. It was 2010 the last time we won in Swansea.
You do always step up when you play in another region. That's one thing you take in consideration. And
except at Cardiff.
That pressure
Don't do it against Cardiff.
Be there. Well, you did turn up against Cardiff. It's just you turned up for Cardiff,
No, on Boxing Day. I don't want to talk about that now anyway because it's upsetting. Although we were that bad, D5FC would have beaten us that day. But the less said about that, the better now. Before we make our predictions, Harley, do you want to give an update on the Predictions League for us?
Sure. So, I mean, it's obviously it hasn't changed much since last week, but just to sort of remind people. Mark, you might as well go absolutely batshit with your predictions because Lee's dead last on 112 points. And we've got James on 120, and then fighting for top spot, it's me currently in the top, but Jamie second on 145 and I'm on 155. So there's 9 games left to predict. So that's decent number of points.
How does this scoring system work then?
So
can I call back?
So the person who's closest to predicting gets 4 points. Second closest 3, 2, 1. So it's just basically how far out on your prediction you are.
Can't make it up then. Can only make up 27 points on you if you come last. It's devastating.
Right, let's make our predictions for the weekend. So, Friday night, Dragons Stormers. I said on Dragons Lair, my prediction was Stormers by 11. And maybe I am being a bit kind, but I like to think that because it is the last game at Rodney Parade this season, that the Dragons are really going to front up and give it a good go. The only problem is whenever we've played the South African sides this season, we sort of stay in a fight for a little bit, but then the power eventually tells. And it's no secret that we got the worst scrum in the URC. That is a statistical fact. In the URC stats, we are ranked 16th most scrums, so you know that we're going to struggle up front. But yeah, I've predicted Stormers by 11. Harley, what's your prediction? Dragons Stormers.
I've gone for. I'm being very unkind here. I've gone for Stormers by 25. I think it's full noise with this Springboks. It looks like it's going to be decent weather as well. Like they're going to have a field day on Dave Parade. It's a fantastic track, and I don't think any of them are that bothered by the crowds booing them. Listening to some of the games at the big derbies in South Africa, they're loud, and I just think the likes of Lebock are going to have a field day.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, isn't it? Matt, what's your prediction then? Dragons Stormers?
Well, in terms of this competition, I'm going to go Stormers by 26. Just like so, you've only got a small margin to win this one, Harley.
Do you want to make up the score for James as well?
Dragons by 30.
I'm sure you appreciate that. Right then,
What's
Saturday
Dragons
then.
win
That'll be brilliant, wouldn't it? Scarlets versus Ulster. Go on then, Martyn. We know what you're going to say. We're going to say Scarlets to do, but
yeah, I'll go Scarlets by 4.
Scarlets by 4. Harley?
I've gone Ulster by 7. So I think Scarlets will get. I think you get a point out of it. Maybe 2.
Maybe 5.
Yeah,
that would be nice. But also, I'd be spitting feathers. You finish the season on more wins than us.
That's exactly the same prediction I got. I wrote down Ulster by 7 as well. So there we go. Losing bonus point there for the Scarlets. That would be pretty decent, I suppose.
So, prediction for James?
Oh, what should we say?
Scarlets by 30.
I was going to go with Ulster by 38, but there we go. So what? Because they're not going to score that many.
Ulster by 50. Right. The game after, it's Lions versus Cardiff. Go on then, Ali, what's your prediction?
I've gone for Lions by 20. And I feel like I'm being kind to Cardiff on that one.
20, that much? That's interesting.
It's because we're not scoring, we're not making the most of our chances. That's all that's down to. And I'm hoping, because I predicted a win against Edinburgh and we lost quite badly. I'm hoping it reverses the other way, because I'd rather be wrong on my prediction.
Okay, fair enough. Matt, can Cardiff get anything out of this game? How do you see it going?
Lions by 8.
Lions by 8. Okay. I've gone for Lions by 13 on that one. And like I said, I'm looking forward to watching it, just because I think it could be a really fun game. And then Saturday night, Leinster Ospreys. So, Ali, let's come to you then. And the Ospreys
I'm being incredibly kind on Ospreys. I'm going for Leinster by 3. Just I'm hoping they drag them down into it.
They take that. I think if they lost by 3, take them.
I'd take that away to Leinster any day.
What about you then, Matt?
Leinster by 15.
Leinster by 15. Okay. I've gone for Leinster by 10. It really does depend on the team that they put out. But, I mean, if they are going to go fully loaded, it's going to be very difficult for the Ospreys, isn't it? It's always a tough place to go. But, I've gone for Leinster by 10. Okay, then before we wrap up, feeder pods. So, Mark, the Scarlets Fever pod, that's out now, isn't it?
Yeah,
I believe so. So, what did you chat about on there?
Well, we had a lovely chat about Llandovery's small matter of a semi-final win over Cardiff. I know looking to do a nice treble, cup, league leaders and league champions, so that'll be nice for them. And just a preview on Ulster. We've not had any real news coming out of the Scarlets, well, at all really. So I'm expecting a flood of it over the next few weeks, especially by the time June 1st comes around. I'm expecting at least 4 or 5 signings, and we've been promised the leavers list before Ulster. We've been promised it. So if whether or not that comes through is another question.
Okay, great stuff. So that's out now if you want to listen to the Scarlets Fever pod. The Dragon's Lair pod, that's out now. Me and Gavin have talked about the new signings. We've done a deep dive on every signing. We talked about David Buttress's departure. We couldn't talk about Shane Lewis-Hughes because we've recorded a pod and then literally an hour later, Dragons announced the Shane Lewis-Hughes signing. And so we talk about that and we previewed the Stormers as well. So there's a lot of chat going on there. That's out now with Dragon's Lair. Harley, Cardiff Central pod, you recording this week, I believe?
Yep, so we'll be recording Wednesday night. So it'll just be doing a bit more of an in-depth preview of the Lions. We haven't managed to get a guest in time. Probably talk a little bit in depth about the squad updates and where we see the lie of the land and sort of maybe get a prediction of who and what ifs coming next, either come in or go in. The only other thing I want to promote is me and Catboy are going to do a special wrap on Thursday nights, just sort of doing more of a deep dive into Wales women because didn't really get the chance to do it on the regular pods because we're trying to keep the time down, the running time down. So we're just going to give them a big deep dive into the tournament so that, what it means going into WXV 2 or 3, depending on how the playoff against Spain goes.
Excellent. So if you follow the women's game, keep an eye out for that one. That should be good stuff. Ospreys Irie, I do believe they are doing a pod. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. And I think we'll leave it there for this week. Thank you very much, gents. Martyn, thank you for stepping in for Lee. Much appreciated. Harley, thank you as always. And as I said earlier, please leave us a nice review on Apple and Spotify and any other pod platforms. And we'll be back next week with more news and views from the world of Welsh rugby. So until then, take care and goodbye.
Bye.
That's stuff.
Thank you for listening to the Wrap Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording it. Please do rate us and tell your friends, as it really helps us to grow and get better. We'll be back next week with more of the same, and until then, enjoy your rugby.
Sports Social Podcast Network.